to Matthew, Sermon on the Mount, chapter 5. And we could literally spend probably a year talking about chapters 5, 6, and 7. But our purposes here are to look at what the LDS miss when reading the Bible or misrepresent when they teach it. Perhaps the best way to understand the Sermon on the Mount is to first ask ourselves, what is Jesus trying to accomplish with these teachings? In the end, all of his words are aimed at totally convicting the reader and to show the absolute need for Jesus to step in and save us from our fallen selves. Many LDS people, especially their missionaries and their apologists, love to quote from the Sermon on the Mount, suggesting that the Lord said these things in order to show you what you have to do as a human being to make it to heaven. They pull from the verses and they say, Jesus said this, Jesus said we must do that, and therefore you have to comply. But try and understand the context of what he was saying. You can start to do this by listening to the frequency in which Jesus uses the phrase, it has been said, or it has been written, and then he adds, but I say. Okay? Jesus says, it has been said, or it has been written, and then he adds, but I say. Okay? So in Matthew 5:21, Jesus states, you have heard it said, thou shalt not kill. But in Matthew 5:22, Jesus says, but I say unto you that whosoever is angry with his brother without a cause shall be in danger of the judgment, and whosoever shall say to his brother Raca shall be in danger of the council, but whosoever shall say thou fool shall be in danger of hellfire. In verse 27, Jesus says, you have heard it said, thou shalt not commit adultery. But then in verse 28, he adds, but I say unto you, that whosoever looketh upon a woman to lust after her has committed adultery with her already in his heart. In verse 31, he states, it has been said that whosoever shall put away his wife, let him give her a writing of divorcement. The next verse, but I say unto you, that whomsoever shall put away his wife, saving for the cause of fornication, causes her to commit adultery. And whosoever shall marry her that is divorced committeth adultery. Go to verse 33. Here Jesus says that in the old times it was said you shouldn't forswear yourself. But then in verse 34 through 37 he adds, but I say unto you, swear not at all, neither by heaven, for it is God's throne, swear not at all, nor by the earth, for it is his footstool, neither by Jerusalem, for it is the city of the great king. Neither shalt thou swear by thy head, because thou canst not make one hair black or white. Then he adds something that few on earth ever follow, saying, but let your communication be yea, yea, nay, nay. For whatsoever is more than these comes of evil. Are you convicted by reading these things? Are your communications only yea, yea, and nay, nay? And does everything else come of evil? How about in your mind? Do you see how evil you are in that way relative to God? Then in Matthew 5:39 he adds, but I say unto you, wait a minute, he says in verse 38, you have heard it has been said, an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, but I say unto you, that ye resist not evil. But whosoever shall smite thee on the right cheek, turn to him the other also. Now, ask yourselves, are you able to do these things? Even consistently, can you do these things? When you're at the Ward basketball free-for-all, are you able to do these things? When you're in traffic, when your neighbor insults your children, are you able to resist the evil? Are your communications yes and no? Jesus finalizes this line of thought by saying in verse 43, ye have heard that it has been said, thou shalt love thy neighbor and hate thine enemy. Then in the next verse he adds, but I say unto you, love your enemies, bless them that curse you, do good to them that hate you, pray for them which despitefully use you and persecute you. Then after a few more words he adds, be ye therefore perfect, even as your Father which is in heaven is perfect. Whoa! Really? Be perfect, Jesus? How can I be perfect, Lord? Why, if a woman even trips and falls in the mud in front of me, I'm thinking of jumping in there after her, Lord. How am I supposed to walk through this life and be perfect and not fail to all these things that you have said? Why, if someone even drifts over in the lane I'm driving in on the freeway, I lose my Christianity, Lord. How can I do it? And Lord, I've been divorced twice. I'm not talking about me. This is rhetorical. I've been divorced twice. I guess I'm an adulterer and bound for hell. Is that right, Lord? According to what you say here in Matthew, yes. In many ways, the LDS have people believe that it is up to them to meet these requirements in their flesh or to do their very best throughout their lives to try as hard as they can to get it all lined up, and then they will prove themselves worthy for the kingdom of heaven. What a lie. After this teaching on the Mount, and later on in the Synoptic Gospels, Jesus throws down on how difficult it is for a rich man to get into the kingdom of heaven. And after hearing all this, his disciples turn to him and they ask him a question. Who can be saved then? Who then can be saved? They had heard all these things, and finally Jesus is able to get them to understand the point. It is here he's able to teach them the point of it all, and he says, with men it is impossible, but with God all things are possible. This is the point of the Sermon on the Mount. Jesus was trying to get the people to see that to reach heaven or a state of perfection by their own power, operating by the flesh of their will, it was impossible for men. The command to be perfect is certain, but how does a person become perfect in order to return to God? Listen very closely to this. The only way to live with God after this life, listen closely, is to die as righteous as God is. God will never abide or abode with anybody who is not as righteous as he is, because that is shadow, that is dark. So the question is, by what means does a person become as righteous as God is? Well, I can tell you how it won't happen. It won't be through their efforts, their works, or their attempts at obedience to establish their own righteousness. No, with man it is impossible. With God, with Jesus, by faith in him and his righteousness and his works and his shed blood, you will die and be as righteous as God. It's because of Jesus' perfection and his righteousness that you're made that way. Hey everybody, if you've enjoyed this video presentation, I want to invite you to come and check us out at cult.love. Can you believe that name? Cult.love. It stands for Christian Ultra-Libertarians for Truth. See, once I saw Mormonism for what it was, I began to embark on testing everything in the faith, in Christian evangelicalism, and came to see the biblically supported reality that brick and mortar church is done. It's really, truly over, and this is supported by the Bible. And so all there is a better way that God has given the earth since the victory of his Son, and that's all found in light and learning and love and liberty. And so we at Cult.love are focused on those things online in an online community. We got rid of brick and mortar. There's no ties and memberships. If you are tired of religion, if you've been abused, burned out, lied to, taken advantage of, check us out at Cult.love.